Now, there's no doubt about it that as of right now, Disney and Lucasfilm are really looking to turn things around and create a course correct for the Star Wars franchise in multiple strategies that they're currently forming behind closed doors, a lot of which has to do with Jon and Dave literally reviving Star Wars Legends material into live-action adaptations through TV shows, movies, and more. And on top of that, we have a lot of other aspects being thrown into the equation, such as retcons toward the sequels and more. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to support the channel. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about all of this, and let's get right to the chase here about what's really going to happen with the future of a specific Star Wars character that Daisy Ridley was able to talk about, and this all revolves around Rey. Now, we know that Rey was a very big, controversial character in the sequel trilogy for multiple reasons, as you all know. A lot of fans thought she was way too overpowered, that her dialogue wasn't written all that well, or maybe even, as far to say that the actress herself didn't do a great job acting as Rey. Daisy Ridley, of course. And, there's a lot of fan complaints back and forth, and I've said this many times that Rey as a character, she has her good moments, she has her bad moments in the sequels. That's how I feel throughout the entirety of the trilogy, for many of the characters and the overall scenes. But moving on to the next thing here about what Daisy Ridley was able to tease is that with actress Daisy Ridley recently addressing many plans for the upcoming new Jedi Order movie to fans, she went on to tease some other significant aspects of Rey in the upcoming projects that Lucasfilm is developing. She went on to state the following to fans: "Well, we have this movie that Steven is working so hard on, and another project that I have been in the talks with Jon and Dave about, and we kept on discussing where does this character's journey end? What would be the best way to explore her conclusion in life and pass on the torch to our next hero?" These are discussions that we are having every day, and it's something that we had with the sequels of Rey meeting her end in life, and we ended up switching that to Ben Solo, but now we are re-exploring and having those conversations again to really focus on the story of Star Wars and how part of it is about family, but it's also about life and death. Now, she makes a good point here that Star Wars, yes, part of it is about life and death. It's true, and she makes a good point eventually. But the thing that really is new here is that there were plans for Rey to be killed off permanently in the sequels and have Ben Solo live on as the last Skywalker. That was JJ's original idea, and she goes on to elaborate a little bit later about exactly why things changed. I'll talk about that in just a second. Yes, it does have a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy, in case you're wondering. But we know that Rey as a character is one of the complex characters because it did create a fan division. There's a lot of fans that do not like this character. There's also a lot of fans that like the character, and hey, we're all human beings here. We have our opinions, we have our views on things, right? And that's to be respected below in the comments. So she goes on to actually talk more about what she's currently discussing with Steven Knight, who, by the way, is writing this new Jedi Order movie, which a lot of people are calling it simply the Rey movie, where it's really not necessarily a Rey movie. She's going to be a supporting character in this film. There is going to be a new main lead in this film by Steven Knight. Just be aware about that. And that could very well have something to do with passing on the torch to somebody else. Now, there's also another project. We've talked about this, that Daisy is working on with Jon and Dave. It's the post-Episode 9 series. It's going to take place 25 years after the events of Episode 9, roughly 10 whole years after the new Jedi Order movie, because that takes place 15 years after Episode 9. Very simple math there. But the next thing, what's really interesting about this is that she goes on to elaborate, we all saw what happened to those like Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Luke. Life and death is a natural thing and a great lesson in life to do the best you can to create a better world, especially in Star Wars. And that is going to be a part of Rey's journey. It's something that I and Steven have been talking about, and how this could eventually be told in other projects set after the new Jedi Order film that we are slowly putting together. We want to make sure and make her journey good, but we don't want to go on forever. And it's also about how do we explore her end of life and where that could possibly go later on, like Luke did. Now again, she's talking about becoming one with the Force and becoming a Force ghost, stuff like that. How is that going to work out with Rey? All these questions are popping up. So this is a very big discussion. It is going to eventually happen, as she says here, that they don't want to have her stories going on forever. They eventually want her to meet her end, to pass on the torch to somebody else. And you know what? Given that Star Wars is all about evolution, I support that. I support, one character meeting their end in their journey and a new person's journey beginning. And so it's going to be interesting to see where this all heads with not necessarily just the new Jedi Order film, but the post-Episode 9 series, which is really going to focus in on exactly the new Jedi Order, all built, being successful and all, and pretty much the Jedi being established permanently and officially speaking, of course. This new Jedi Order movie is about rebuilding it. Meanwhile, the post-Episode 9 series is about basically how it's going to be established. That's basically what John and Dave's plan is, and they want to throw Rey in there as, a supporting character again as well. So, moving on, she says again, believe it or not, JJ and I were a supporter of Rey meeting her time in the sequels. She's talking about her death, by the way. I discussed this with JJ and he almost did it. In fact, the switch to Ben using his life force was a last-minute decision by Kathy at the time, and JJ felt the roles should have either been reversed, or Ben and Rey walking into the sunset with a happy ending. But unfortunately, we didn't get to tell that or do that in the final cut. We are going to eventually explore Rey's end. It's just a matter of when, and it's something that we all are agreeing on. Interesting, to say the least, that there is going to be an end in sight for Rey's journey, her time in life. Exactly how she's going to meet her end is a bigger question open on the table, right? Is it going to be a natural cause? Is it going to be during a fight? Or perhaps using some kind of force power? Who knows? But this is still a ways off, and Daisy is seemingly confirming here that there is an end in sight for Rey's life. That there will be some kind of death explored at a certain point in time in this new Jedi Order era that's going to basically, so far, mark itself as the end of the Star Wars timeline. And the beginning of the timeline now is considered Dawn of the Jedi. I believe they elaborate that takes place 25,000 years before the events of Episode 1, which is crazy. So things like this really do bring out a lot of questions, Why is Daisy Ridley talking about this now, if it's a little too far off? I mean, it's quite a number of years away. We talked about how this new post-Episode 9 series, they don't intend to release it at least until 2026, a year after the release of the new Jedi Order movie, which that would kind of make sense in a way, kind of create it as a follow-up. But with this current writer's strike, it really makes you wonder, are they going to make things on time? Are these projects going to meet their specific schedules that were ticked before? That's the biggest question of all. So anyways, guys, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.